What if I told you that most empires don't collapse because of invasion or war, but because of themselves? Not with a bang, but with a slow rot from within. Corruption, currency collapse, civil unrest. The same symptoms over and over again, from Rome to the Ming Dynasty, from the French monarchy to modern-day examples we might be living through without realizing it. We like to imagine empire collapse as an external event, an enemy breaching the gates, a battle lost, a government toppled. But history tells us something far more unsettling. Long before a sword is drawn, the decay begins inside. The seeds of collapse are often planted during the empire's golden age. Why do the most powerful civilizations in history become victims of their own success? What internal forces, often invisible at first, turn prosperity into fragility? And more importantly, could we be witnessing the same process today? Let's start with a story over 2,000 years old. At its peak, the Roman Empire stretched from Britain to the Middle East, boasting roads, architecture, and administrative efficiency unlike anything the world had seen. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Rome didn't fall in a single day or even a single year. It unraveled over centuries. The Roman economy began to overextend. Conquest slowed, meaning less plunder and fewer slaves to fuel the economy. Yet the costs of maintaining a vast empire remained the same, or grew. The military became bloated. Government corruption intensified. Senators bought influence. Bureaucrats enriched themselves. So what did Rome do when expenses outpaced revenue? It printed money. Or rather, it debased its currency. The silver content in Roman coins was gradually reduced. Under Emperor Nero, the silver content of the denarius dropped from 100% to 90%. Later emperors took it down even further, sometimes to below 5%. As the coins lost their intrinsic value, inflation soared, prices rose, trust in money declined. Eventually, the denarius became practically worthless, and barter systems returned in some regions. But that was just the beginning. To pay soldiers and administrators, Rome levied more taxes on its population, especially on the peasantry and middle class. The rich, as always, found ways to avoid them. Over time, free citizens became indentured to wealthy landlords, unable to escape their debts. Social mobility collapsed. Meanwhile, civil unrest grew. Between the 3rd and 5th centuries AD, Rome faced wave after wave of internal revolts, assassinations, and power grabs. At one point, more than 25 emperors claimed the throne in less than 50 years, most by force, many murdered. The final blow came not just from barbarian invasions, but from a state too weak, too divided, and too internally compromised to resist them. The empire had hollowed itself out. This is not a uniquely Roman story. Let's jump forward to France in the 18th century. Before the French Revolution, France was the most powerful state in Europe, militarily, culturally, and economically. But it too faced financial rot. Centuries of warfare, including the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution, had left France buried in debt. To manage it, the monarchy turned to currency manipulation, issuing paper money through the infamous assignats, backed by confiscated church lands. At first, the plan seemed to work, but once again, the government printed more and more money without backing. Inflation spiraled, bread prices doubled, then tripled. Starving citizens rioted. The elite hoarded wealth and avoided taxes. The result was a bloody revolution and the execution of the king himself. Let's examine the dynamics. It starts with wealth concentration. As empires grow, the rewards go to the top. The ruling class becomes detached from the realities of the people. Corruption is not just tolerated, it becomes institutional. Those in power rewrite rules to keep it. Next comes fiscal irresponsibility. Governments, unwilling to tax the rich or cut spending, resort to short-term fixes. Currency devaluation, foreign borrowing, asset seizures. But these only mask the problem while worsening the long-term decay. Finally, social trust collapses. When people no longer trust money, leaders, or institutions, society fragments. Factions emerge. Conspiracy theories spread. Stability gives way to fear. This brings us to the Weimar Republic in Germany, a modern industrial society in the early 20th century, torn apart from within. After World War I, Germany owed massive reparations. Instead of raising taxes or cutting spending, it printed money. By 1923, hyperinflation reached catastrophic levels. A loaf of bread cost billions of marks. Middle-class savings evaporated overnight. Pensions became worthless. Civil society broke down. Extremism thrived in the vacuum. Within a decade, the collapse of trust in the democratic system paved the way for one of the most authoritarian regimes in history. Again, the collapse wasn't military, it was monetary, political, and social, all from within. Let's look at modern parallels. According to data from the World Bank and IMF, global debt levels today are higher than at any point in recorded history, over $300 trillion worldwide. In the United States, the national debt is more than $34 trillion, surpassing GDP. Nearly half of that was added in just the last 15 years. Meanwhile, wealth inequality is at historic highs. In the US, the top 1% of earners control over 30% of the nation's wealth. The bottom 50% own just 2.5%. Real wages for average workers have stagnated, while asset prices, real estate, stocks, have soared. How has this been managed? Through monetary expansion. Since 2008, central banks have injected trillions of dollars into economies via quantitative easing. Interest rates were held near zero for years. This created asset bubbles, rewarded speculation, and punished savers. Inflation remained tame until it didn't. In 2022, US inflation hit a 40-year high. Europe followed. Central banks began hiking rates, triggering banking stress, debt crises in emerging markets, and fears of recession. All the while, political polarization has worsened. Trust in institutions is near record lows. In Gallup's 2023 poll, only 26% of Americans said they had a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the presidency. Congress ranked even lower, at 8%. Is it alarmist to compare today with Rome or Weimar Germany? Not necessarily. The mechanics are the same, even if the context differs. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Let's break down the pattern of internal collapse into 5 stages. 1. Origins. An empire builds strength through innovation, discipline, or conquest. Systems are efficient, institutions are trusted. But growth hides growing complexity and cost. 2. Rise. Wealth flows upward. Elite classes consolidate power. Infrastructure and culture flourish, but dependency on expansion or cheap labor increases. 3. Breaking point. Economic pressure builds. Costs outstrip income. To delay consequences, governments debase currency or expand credit. Corruption grows, public trust erodes. 4. Fallout. Inflation rises. Civil unrest escalates. Extremism gains traction. External threats are ignored or underestimated. The state becomes reactive, not proactive. 5. Failed fixes. Attempts to patch over problems. More spending, more printing, more surveillance. Fail to address root causes. Collapse becomes inevitable. This framework fits Rome. It fits pre-revolutionary France. It fits Weimar Germany. And it mirrors trends today. So what can we learn? Here are 3 takeaways. First, decay is invisible until it isn't. The most dangerous phase is not when things are chaotic, but when things appear stable while rot spreads underneath. It's during the golden ages that corruption grows unchecked. Second, currency reflects trust. When people lose faith in their money, it signals a deeper loss of faith in their institutions. Hyperinflation and collapse rarely begin with economics. They begin with broken credibility. Third, civil strife is a symptom, not a cause. By the time the streets are filled with protesters or rioters, the collapse has already begun. Polarization, division, and violence are downstream of long-term political and economic decay. Which leads us to a warning. If history is any guide, empires don't fall because of enemies. They fall because of choices. Bad incentives, short-term thinking, and elite impunity rot them from within. And by the time collapse is visible, it's already too late to reverse. So what can we do? The first step is awareness. We must recognize the signs, question the narratives, understand the incentives driving decisions, especially when they involve debt, currency, or consolidation of power? Ask yourself, are we rewarding stability or speculation? Are we prioritizing the future or deferring pain for convenience? Are we repeating patterns we already know end in disaster? These aren't just academic questions. They shape our future. If you found this breakdown insightful, share it. Subscribe for more deep dives into the history, economics, and politics that shape our world. Because the fall of empires isn't just history, it might be prophecy.